Well, okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about Merlin tonight. Have been getting a lot of questions, and I know there's like a lot of people that are super excited about Merlin, and some people are, maybe some of the like people that are reviewing data are a little less enthused about it. So I thought I would talk about it a little bit. Hopefully most of you are at least familiar with it and have maybe either tried it yourself or have seen somebody else try it. But I do recommend that you download the app for free and give it a try just to supplement your atlasing. So I just want to talk a little bit about it. And if you don't know already, Merlin is a free app that you can use it to help you with bird ID in several different ways. First, they came out with a visual, sorry, come on, there we go. Are you seeing the full slide, title slide? Thank you, Charlie. So you can use the Merlin app to help you. It has like a field guide. It has all the sound recordings in there. You can upload a photo to it and it will ID the bird based on the photo. And it also like, also now has sound ID. And that's the part that I really want to talk about. And that's like the really exciting new thing. So they just came out with like version 2.0 of Merlin. And it has a lot of improvements and it's quite a bit more accurate now than it used to be. And it now covers pretty much all of the birds in North America. So it's super useful. So the way that it works is you can start the Merlin app and then you can go into Sound ID and you can start hitting the record button and then you just aim it at whatever it is that you're listening to or just aim it into the air around you. And it will identify the birds that it's hearing in real time. So there's like a 1 second delay maybe while it processes the information and then it tells you what it is. And it will show you, like you can leave it running for like 2 minutes and it will just keep flipping back through and telling you that's a red-winged blackbird, that's a blue jay, that's a crow, that's a chickadee, that's a towhee. Like it'll just flip back and forth through all of those species. And so it can be really useful to use it as just like any other field guide that you're used to using, you know, a book that you would carry with you or having like audio sounds on your phone from another app. It can be used just like that as like helping you just as an identification tool. I would say that it's really good right now. It's really accurate. It's not perfect. We'll get to that in just a second. It's not 100%, but it is really good. So you can use it as if you had another expert birder out there with you in real time. And I think that that's really helpful because it can help you fill in some of your gaps that you may not be hearing correctly. So, you know, sometimes people tune out, say, a blue jay or a crow or something that's really common. And we tend to tune them out because they're everywhere. And we're more interested in those like rare, more interesting species. And so it will pick up all of those common species and you'll realize, oh yeah, I did hear a blue jay. Okay, let's add that to my list. It can pick up some sounds that you may not even be able to hear just because there's like quieter bird that's farther away than a really loud bird. But because it's analyzing not just it's analyzing the data in a different way. So it's actually like analyzing the sonogram itself, right? So it has a different set of data that it's working with than our brains can use just that sound, right? And it can pick up really far away birds. I will admit, freely that I have hearing loss. I have lost a lot of my high-end hearing. And I use it quite a bit to help me tell me that there's like a creeper nearby, and it tells me there's a creeper. And then I can start scanning all the tree trunks near me, and then I'll find it. And then that helps me get on the bird, a bird that I probably otherwise would have completely overlooked. And then I'll be able to watch it and hopefully, see it carrying nesting material or carrying food or something like that. And then the other thing is that I think it really helps you learn a lot of new sounds because it's in real time. You're not having to like try to remember, oh, I heard a sound. What did that sound like? And then by the time you get home, you're like, well, I think it was like this, but it could have been that. No, you can actually double check it in real time and say, that is exactly what I heard. And so it'll allow you to pick up new songs, new calls, all kinds of different information. I've used it even for like baby birds. It'll help identify sometimes the begging calls of nestlings. So it's a really powerful tool, and I do recommend using it. But having said that, it's not 100% infallible, right? So if you are using it and you do come across something that's interesting that you weren't expecting somewhere, like say there's a parula or a Nashville warbler or something, you might want to track it down and just make sure that that is what it is. And then get some additional documentation if it's, out of range or something, and try to, observe it some more, obviously, for the atlas to see if you can watch it doing something that indicates breeding. If you find a rare bird, you're going to want to actually save that recording and add it to your checklist. And Merlin makes it fairly easy to do that. There are a number of steps you have to go through. You can't just automatically load it up to your checklist right in the app. But having said that, it is fairly straightforward, and I'll go over the steps at the end. And then the last thing I'll say is, even though it's very good, there are some species that are just so close, sound so close to each other that even the AI can't always figure out which species it is. So, right now, the last few days, I've been getting a lot of hits for Philadelphia vireo, and they are migrating through right now. So it is possible right now, but I highly recommend that you track down that vireo and confirm that it is a Philly and not just a red-eyed vireo. Same thing with pine warbler, chipping sparrow, and some of those other trillers. I have had it be wrong before, but it is often right. So it's always good to just kind of double check and just see what it is for yourself. And then if you're unsure of something, that's bound to happen. Even if you're an expert birder, you're not always going to know what it is that you're hearing. If you can't figure out what it is, then don't report it. Don't just say like, Merlin tells me it's a varied thrush. Probably not a varied thrush, right? It's probably something else that's more common. So don't just report what it says. Try to really verify it yourself first. And then, yeah, the last thing here, if you do include a recording, say it was a varied thrush, which would be a very interesting, very exciting bird to find, you would need to provide documentation, and you can save that recording that you just took in Merlin. And then when you upload it to your checklist, you can actually include the you can hear it calling at seconds, 7, 15, 30 seconds in, you can say where you heard it. And that way that will allow other people to go in and much more easily verify what it is that is in the recording. All right, so eBird does have a number of best practices that they recommend for using the Merlin Sound ID. They also recommend to independently verify all the identifications. They do recommend that you set your location. So if you're somewhere where you have cell service, it should be automatically updating to your current location. Let's say you're in a much more remote area in the Adirondacks and there's no cell service. It'll have an unknown location. You can set the location to somewhere near you so that it will start to, what it does is it will use the list of species that are likely for your area and compare the sounds against those species. So if you can set your location, even if it's not exactly precise while you're in the field, it will really help narrow down the list of possibilities and will help get you on track faster to identifying that bird. And then when you get back out and you have cell service again, you can add it, pinpoint it to the exact location where you were. So definitely set your location, and that will prevent you from getting like some weird southwestern sparrow or something that a lot of people have run into. Uploading your recording to your checklist is super helpful. And there are some steps to prepare your recording to add it to your checklist, and that makes it so that it's kind of balances out the sound levels, and you can flip the recording to just around that bird, so that it's much easier for people to hear and find the bird that you're focusing on. And then it's good to know that there are, some tips for actually taking that recording. Getting as close as you can without disturbing the bird. It's kind of an obvious one. Another one is to actually figure out where the microphone is on your phone. On my phone, it's on the bottom of the phone. Point the bottom of your phone towards the bird, because the microphone in your smartphone is fairly unidirectional, and it's going to like pick up what's straight in front of it much better than it will what's out to either side, right? So if you want to get a bird that's over here, you point your microphone there, and that will pick up the bird a lot better. And then kind of common sense is to stand still, keep quiet. If you're with other people, let them know that you're going to take a recording and ask them to be quiet as well. Don't walk around, don't talk, just be as quiet as you can so you can get like a really good recording. And then record for, half a minute if you can. Try to get multiple calls or multiple songs of that species, of that bird. And try to make sure that you're doing that, when there's no plane flying over or truck flying by on the road or something like that. So there's less background noise. All right, and then the last thing to talk about is how to upload your recording to your checklist. So you're gonna have to use both apps. You're gonna be using your eBird app, the Merlin app, and your computer. So when you're in eBird, you're gonna do your full checklist as you normally would, and you're gonna then submit it. And then separately in Merlin, you're going to go to that recording that has the sounds that are of interest to you. And then you'll hit the share button, and you can email it to yourself or, AirDrop or use Dropbox or whatever format, whatever method you want to use to get that file to yourself. And then you're going to want to save that file onto your computer. And then once you're on your computer, you're going to open up that checklist that you've already submitted. And then just like you would be adding photos, you just go to add media, and you can put that sound recording there in the media for that species. And then it's always a good idea to just include a few extra comments about where you were, what time of day it was, what the sound is actually representing, so if there were like two birds that were chasing each other and fighting, then you might want to say that it was a territorial dispute between two birds, or that there was cooing and then copulation, and then you can hear one of the birds flying off or something. Like it's a good idea to just explain a little bit of what it is that the sound actually is about. And then, as I mentioned before, to include a timestamp as well. So, if you are uploading like a 2-minute recording, and you haven't taken the extra step to trim your recording down to a smaller section, make sure that you're saying like you can hear it really well at 1 minute and 10 seconds in to the recording, for example. So yeah, that is it. I am showing here, this is a little fledgling Merlin. And you can see down here in the bottom right, there's the nest. There were a couple of, I know that there were a couple of young that fledged from this nest. This is from actually downtown Albany. So yeah. All right, well, that is my short spiel about the Merlin sound ID. I'd love to take any questions you have, and also if you have questions about anything about the Atlas, please feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask. Yeah, Carol.
How reliable is the Merlin ID for identifying woodpecker drumming?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. Has anyone else been experimenting with it? Larry, you have?
I've had good luck with downies versus hairies, for example, as well as red bellies. Pileated are easy for it. So I've had pretty good luck with those birds.
Nice.
I've had misidentifications though by Merlin recently. It keeps adding mockingbird to my checklist where there are no mockingbirds, and I think catbirds for mockingbirds, for example. And it mistakes chipmunks for some birds once in a while.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I have used it to identify baby downies in the nest. So when they're really young and just going, begging in there, to me, to my ears, it sounds like it could have been any woodpecker, right? But it was able to ID it. And then I just sat there and watched and waited until an adult came, and sure enough, the downy. I've had good luck with it too. I haven't tried with drumming.
I have a question, Julie.
Yeah, it's Mary Beth, yeah?
It's Mary Beth, yeah.
Yeah, hey.
Hi. When you get a species, what does the little red dot following the species name mean?
Oh, it means that it's hasn't been reported for that area. It's the same as the like.
I looked that up and I couldn't find it, like what that meant. Okay.
Yeah, it's the same as the dots in eBird, like in the eBird app, where it has the orange dot that tells you that means that it's just uncommon, and then the red one means that it's not reported.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there's also in Merlin, there is a symbol, and I'm not remembering exactly what it looks like, that tells you whether or not you've seen that bird before.
Yeah. The other thing that it does is have that red dot when it doesn't know where you are and isn't associating it with a list. So, I mean, I'll get a list with every bird with a red dot sometimes.
Wow. Okay. Is that so? Like, if it's an unknown location, then it will just say everything is not reported.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also dependent on the time of year too. Early spring, it will start red dotting birds that are common in your area, but perhaps not expected to arrive yet.
Mhm.
Oh,
I think that's the same with the eBird app too, right? And it depends on, because whomever the eBird reviewer is, often when I start getting the red dots, I look at my watch and I'm like, it's the 15th. Yeah, all the filters just changed. And so yeah, of course everything gets red again. And then you have to like start entering data, and then it will change them from red dots to yellow dots to no dots. So, yeah. So it'll show you a little blue check mark if it's a species that you've seen like on your life list in eBird.
Julie, there are a couple of questions in chat too.
Yeah, I see that. Dan, did you have a question?
Yeah, I used it today on about a 3-hour jaunt with about 44 species. I learned a lot. One question I have is, since I live in Maine and I come over to New York, to block bust kind of, I do many hours in a day, and I'm wondering if you've noticed if that puts a drain, using Merlin puts a drain on your battery.
It
and
does.
any ideas about how to deal with that? I do have another, I have a little device where I can charge it through
Yeah, I was gonna say I have a little backup battery
yeah,
pack.
backup.
Yeah, that's really all I know. When my battery starts getting low, I just start to not use the Merlin Sound ID as much. Yeah, I'll only pull it out if it's something that like I really don't know or is rare and I want to get documentation.
Of course, what I do sometimes is, if it's a block that I know how much ground I'm covering, so I turn the tracking off, and that saves battery, and I
Yeah,
can just enter that myself at the end of closing out the trip. But anyway.
yeah, that's a good thing to do. I don't know how many of you have iPhones, but I also will put my iPhone in airplane mode, and there's also like a low power mode. Sorry, there's a low power mode.
Okay.
And so anytime I know that I'm going to be out for a long time, like I'm going to go hiking somewhere, I will put it on airplane, I'll put it in low power mode, and then I
That's
head
a
out.
really
And
good
that
idea.
saves that low power mode saves a lot of
Mhm.
power actually, because it's turning off a lot of the other background apps. And it's not refreshing the other apps in the background on you.
That's very helpful. Yeah,
Yeah.
good idea.
Julie, I want to say that I think it might be better to actually start the list, especially if you do want the track for the distance. Might be better to start the list and then put it on airplane and low power. Because I think it might need somehow it helps you locate to do the tracking better at the beginning. And maybe maybe that was last year. Maybe this year it can do it, even if it's on airplane when you start.
And it should, in theory, be able to, because it should be using the GPS, satellite location and not your cell location. But I have seen the same performance issues as well, where it does perform better if you are on cell service. So
Julie? Julie?
Yeah.
Hi, it's Lee.
Hi, Lee.
Hi. I just have one comment about this battery issue, and then I had a question which I put into chat.
Mhm.
I have a backup battery, from Anchor that's it's not very big. It fits into my pocket. It's only a little bit bigger than my phone. And I just attach it. I just carry it with me. I put it in my back pocket and I leave it connected the whole time I'm on my walk. So I don't I don't have to do any of those things. I don't have to worry about it. I've got plenty of power for as long a walk as I want. And, when I mean, eBird and Merlin, and if I've got the Warbler app open, and sometimes I use BirdNet, and then all of a sudden my battery's down at 20% and I
Yeah.
still have like 2 hours to go.
Right.
And that's worked really well for me. So and it's really easy. I just stick it in my back pocket and whatever. So my
Nice, yeah.
question, which I put into the chat, was about, is there a way to manually set your location in Merlin? Because I use a VPN and I'm not sure if that makes it impossible, or if it's all based on GPS, or,
It's
but
a
I
good
think it's
question. You know, I am not using, my husband uses VPN all the time and he doesn't have a problem. So
sometimes I do and
but I don't
sometimes I
know.
don't.
Yeah, I haven't actually played with that myself. Has anyone else done
Julie,
it with VPN? Yeah, Melinda?
I'm not sure, but I think you have to download like the bird packs for the region.
Yeah,
So
you
if
do.
are in the Northeast or something, then you need to download the Northeastern bird pack
Mhm.
and use that for the region.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it doesn't, it tries to find your location, I think, but I think it must be using
I think
GPS
it's
maybe
using,
with,
it must be because because my husband never complains about having it go through VPN and obscuring his location or anything like that. So I
Okay.
think it must be doing GPS.
okay,
He has it on VPN all the time.
Yeah, me
and he
too.
doesn't have a problem with eBird or with Merlin. So
yeah, I don't have a
Um,
problem with eBird.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they would work the same way. It's the same
Okay. Yeah, I think so
developers.
too.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
thanks.
yeah. Peter asked, what's the best way to crop a recording? And I put a link in the chat that gives details on how to prepare your audio files. It is fairly easy. I've been using Ocean Audio. They have a number of apps that they recommend. Ocean Audio is free, and I found it to be fairly user-friendly. So I would start there and see if that works for you. And it's just easy. You can just hit like a button to normalize it, and then you can easily like select where to crop it and whatnot. It's pretty good. And then Melinda, you also asked about, do you want to like verbally record the location and comments on the recording or write them on the checklist? I mean, you can do it either way. I think Macaulay does prefer if it's in the recording, because that way it'll, always be with the recording. So you can also add that after the fact too, you could always merge them together. But you guys have recording equipment, don't you? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you're probably used to like, I'm out here at Bloomingdale Bog and hearing a black-backed woodpecker, and here it is, right? Like, so yeah, and it's this day, this time, like that's like the proper protocol. But I think a lot of times when I'm using Merlin, I'm just like, it's just a casual, like, I just want to like double check, like, what am like, when I just start doubting myself and like, is that a chestnut or is that a like yellow warbler? Like, it's like, sometimes they just sound so similar, right? And then you can just use Merlin and just double check. And in that case, I probably wouldn't be doing an intro. So if it picked up something rare, then I'd want to add that afterwards at the end of the recording or something.
Julie, that reminds me, I think for me, it is most helpful for helping identify little call notes, like a warbler that's upset at you or something. So I think it's quite good at knowing the different tiny little angry chips from the various warblers, which can be really difficult to sparrow call notes too. Those are a little more different, but it doesn't have to be the whole song. It can actually be a little call note.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Borea, I'm not sure. Yeah, you asked a question.
Yes, hi. Uh,
Hi.
Okay, rather to my frustration, Merlin keeps coming up with a sandhill crane. Now, according to the books, they shouldn't be any place remotely close to this region. So either it's making a pretty big mistake, or else there's something, it's alerting me to something very unusual. It has no trouble finding my location with the GPS. So
Mhm.
what am I to make of that?
Well, so where are you?
Well, it's happened a couple of times in Ossining. Now that the location is pretty close to the Hudson River.
Yeah.
I think it's happened to other places as well, but that's the most frequent.
And have you looked at I don't think there are any breeding pairs known down there.
No, there, at least in the maps I've looked at, the answer is definitely no.
Here, I'm going to show you. Have you looked at the Sandhill Crane map on the Atlas website?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. I mean, that is a species that is expanding quite a bit in New York. So there are quite a few more locations for sandhills than there were 20 years ago in the last Atlas.
Well, maybe
so
maybe it's
yeah,
onto something.
there's a chance, but I don't know what it would be confusing with Sandhill crane.
They were reported all over northwestern Connecticut this spring, flying over in March and April, and they're nesting in a couple spots. They're nesting in a bunch of spots in the Adirondacks now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, then
Yeah.
then it's believable.
It's possible. Yeah. And I know there, the closest one I know of to you is down on the border with New Jersey, down at Wallkill. There's a pair that breeds there.
Mhm.
And then the others are, quite a bit further north. But it's possible. It definitely is possible.
I would
If
say
there's
it's very conceivable down there in Westchester County, and but don't enter it until you get some really good verification of it. Keep it in mind, but maybe make a note of it. But sandhill cranes, as Julie says, are definitely exercising a major range expansion and colonization in areas that they were unknown just a few years ago. So yeah, you might be onto something there. That could be a turn taker.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, because you don't know any down there, right, Rich? In Ossining? I don't.
There we go. Not other than passerby reports,
Right.
as Laurie mentioned, and so yeah, it's very conceivable that they are finding an area down there, at least scouting it.
Mm-hmm.
Here in Maine, we're seeing them on hawk watches and hearing them, and they can be up very high. And of course, it's a loud call, so they would be pretty easy to miss against a real blue sky or something like that. Then they're still moving around. A friend of mine has 11 of them in a cornfield, and they come and go, and they're clearly not nesting there, but we can't figure out where they are. But they've been there for over a month now. So mysteries.
Christina put in the chat that she's had Merlin report sandhills when it was really a vehicle or a dog or something. That's a possibility that it's picking up a distant dog for sure. But yeah, if there's suitable habitat around there, I would keep an eye out for sure, because they are around and they do move around, particularly if they're not like settled yet. So
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah. Any other questions? Can be any question about the Atlas, about eBird, about technology, behaviors.
I guess I'd be happy to share a little experience with Merlin. We've used it very successfully, even in the first week it was out last July. Taboria, I got sandhill cranes in Rush, New York, south of the Thruway, flying overhead. And so my eBird reviewer questioned me on the sighting, but I had pictures, even though they were far away, and they're going over. This spring for me, the new bird is mourning warbler.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that I've seen one in my lifetime down in Allegheny. And this spring, and at least on 3 occasions, Merlin has picked up mourning warbler. And because I have not personally heard it or seen it, I have not reported it. I've been taking Julie's line, and I use it as an educational tool and learning and to confirm. And like the rest of us, I've certainly lost high notes. Very effective at picking up things like even, blue-gray gnatcatchers can be very high.
They can,
But I
yeah.
see Merlin and I know to look for them, and then I find them.
Yeah.
And cedar waxwings. My daughter will hear them going up en masse, and I don't hear a thing, and Merlin picks it up. So I'm very happy with it and feel like what I'm seeing, I just need to look harder most of the time to find what it's picking up. It's very sensitive.
It is really helpful to have just that little clue, like this bird is probably around me. And then because you have it long experience with that bird, you know where it's likely to be around you, and you can really like key into that like microhabitat, and like, is there a tree with fruit on it right now? Okay, that's where the waxwings will be. Yeah, so it can be really helpful that way.
We were just up in Madison County in Brookfield State Forest, and there were mourning warblers all over the place. You should go there if you want to see them. We had at least a half a dozen of them.
Nice.
We saw several of them. It was really great. And I'll also say, I'm in the same boat as you as far as losing my hearing. Hearing aids have made a huge, huge difference for me. There's a couple of years when I just didn't hear anything. And my wife, that's where it says Charlie and Sandy. My wife is Sandy. She can hear very well. And she'd say, you hear that? And I'd say, no, I got the hearing aids last summer and they have made a huge difference for me. So I would urge you to think about that too.
Yeah, well, Larry, you can say about the birders' ears, or is that what you're going to say?
Well, I was going to say about Songfinder, which came out
Yeah, right.
in the 90s, and I've owned one for years. Lang doesn't produce it anymore. You can get them on eBay, but he's coming out with an app this fall.
Yeah.
That should do the same thing as the Songfinder did. And it brought back birds I hadn't heard for years, like cedar waxwings and gnatcatchers and things I thought were rare, but they're everywhere. Using Songfinder.
Same here. I use one as well. And I just donated the other week to Lang's crowdfunder for the Hear Birds Again app, which he's producing. So Lang Elliott, if you know Lang, he's produced a lot of audio CDs of nature sounds out of Ithaca. And yeah, so he used to produce this device that, you have a headset and it's like a little thing that you can wear around your belt, and it drops the pitch down like a whole octave. And it does it. You can do it just once or twice or 3 times. You can like drop it down to different levels to where you actually still have your hearing. You have to relearn the sounds again. There is a little bit of a learning curve to like, oh, that's a blackpoll warbler, but like the pitch is dropped. But it does work. And so now they're turning that into an app that will be available soon, as Larry said.
I was going to say the same thing about losing your hearing. you have to relearn a lot of the birds. Like winter wren, I can hear every fifth note, and so now I know that what it sounds like with, 4/5 of its song not there. And that Merlin
Right.
helped me with that today because it can hear the whole song. And then it would put that, and I go, oh yeah, that was the last two notes of a chestnut side warbler, which I can hear.
Or that last dee dee of
Yeah,
a
that's
black-throated green warbler, right?
yeah,
Like I can hear those little dee dee and then
exactly.
but nothing else.
But that was where Merlin was useful because it just backed up what I thought it
Right.
was. And,
Yeah. 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 It sucks getting old.
I have an interesting story that happened yesterday when a group of us were out birding. A man in a pickup truck stopped and he wanted to talk to us because further out in a community where he has sort of a nature reserve, the community and the farmers want to have this huge solar farm put in. So he is trying to say that the upland sandpiper is nesting in his area, and he was hoping to the short-eared owl. And if he can prove that some of these things are nesting there, then he may be able to convince people not to put this massive solar farm. So I've done a little homework and I found out where he lives and in what atlas block it is. Then I've gone to that atlas block and I can see that some of the people and myself, I've been in that atlas block, have recorded the birds that are found so far. And one of them is the upland sandpiper in
Oh,
that
good.
block. So I'm going to give him this information so he can either contact, or if he sees some of the people, because he said, I would like you to come out and identify the birds that are on my property and my preserve that he's trying to create, so that this other solar farm doesn't destroy whatever he's been trying to create. Even though the farmers, of course, are going to get a lot of money. And he says when he goes to the town meetings, he's sort of cut off. So he's looking for organizations to help him, maybe to investigate, to get some information about breeding birds. So I suggested NISOA, also Onondaga Audubon and Andy Mason, and some of the other people that are listed that are going in that block, sort of recording or identifying some of the birds.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I was gonna say the local Audubon chapter would be a good place to start. I will say if it's like, a big enough project, wind or solar, then it would get reviewed by DEC, and DEC does use eBird data in their review and atlas data.
I've seen grassland birds nesting right next to a solar project. As long as it's not right on top of the grassland, they can be right next to it and still do fine.
Okay.
Even uppies, Larry?
I haven't seen uppies. I've seen other birds like bobolinks and Savannah sparrows and so forth right next to solar fields.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. I only know of one place in the state right now that has short-eared breeding. And that's not on.
I did check the breeding bird atlas from 20 years ago, and there was one little block in central part of Oneida County, but I really can't figure out exactly where it was. So, it would probably be unlikely.
Yeah. It would be great if you find it, though. It'd be great. Go out and find short-eared breeding. That would be awesome.
Some of the solar panels can be elevated so that the ground breeding birds can breed actually underneath them. So that's another way to have greener energy plus the birds.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
Can
Yeah,
anyone
and-
say, would you like to say anything at all about nightjar surveys?
Yeah, although this window is up this weekend. Yeah, but yeah, so if anyone is interested, we are trying to get people to go out and do nightjar surveys. So that's common nighthawk, whippoorwill, and Chuckwill's widow. And we have some established routes across the state. But if there's not a route near you and you think that there are nightjars that are breeding near you, then you can create a route that would pass by that area. And they're roadside routes, and you just stop like every mile and listen for 6 minutes, and just see what you hear. The problem, the biggest thing with them is that you need to time it right with the moon. It needs to be at least half of a moon. And the moon has to be above the horizon, there has to be no clouds obscuring it, and low wind and no rain. So there is, that's the thing that can be hard, is to get good weather conditions for it. So there's a window right now that ends on the 22nd. And then the next window starts on June 7th or 8th. I forget now. So yeah. There's still time to do that. If anyone has them breeding near them, that'd be great. Well, I can put a plug in too for June, that we are planning the Big Atlas weekend again for the end of June. So it'll be the last weekend in June. The Wednesday before, we're having Robin Bailey with Project Nest Watch at Cornell Lab is talking, doing a presentation about nest watching. And then we'll have the competitions through the weekend, and then the following Wednesday we'll do the award ceremony again. And this year we have New York, Maine, North Carolina, Maryland, DC, Ontario, and Newfoundland all joining in. So we've got like the whole Eastern Seaboard, all of the atlases that are going on right now participating. And we'll again have a chance at the award ceremony to have breakout rooms and be able to like meet atlasers from other projects too. So look forward to more information on that coming out soon.
You had a question on the chat about
Yeah.
doing nightjars anyway. So
Yeah, is it useful to just visit Atlas blocks at night to listen instead of do a survey? Yes, absolutely. Every block, all the priority blocks, we would like them to have 2 hours of nocturnal effort. And we do want that effort kind of spaced out throughout the breeding season, so like you're getting owls, you're getting rails, you're getting nightjars, you're getting, grassland birds can be really good at night. So yeah, trying to space that out to get all of the different night species is also very important too.
Could you maybe just talk, Julie, about the time for nocturnal in terms of like, is the month of June good, the month of July, et cetera, et cetera?
Yep, sure. Yeah, so I think April is kind of a really good month for getting all of the owls. That tends to be pretty good for them, as well as woodcock, and can get some snipe then too, but not as well. And And then I would say late May, early June, and then through June, and into the beginning of July. So anytime in that like late May to early July is also a really good period to get the nightjars, to get the rails, to get the grassland bird, to get some of the other like forest birds that call at night, like cuckoos can call at night. There's a whole, actually quite a range of species that are active at night. So yeah, it's good to space that out a bit. The other thing to recognize is that a nocturnal checklist in eBird. Charlie. It's 40 minutes after.
Nocturnal time starts 20 minutes after
20
sunset and it ends 40 minutes before sunrise.
I can never remember it, literally can't remember. So Charlie always has to help me out and I always get it backwards. Yeah, so it's very like specific and I can't even remember when it's nocturnal in eBird or not. So what I recommend is doing like short checklists, do like a 5-minute checklist. And that works pretty well because when you're in that dusk and like, early night phase, it can be the most productive to just like drive, stop and listen, drive a little bit, stop and listen, drive, stop and listen. So if you just do like 5-minute checklists, then you don't have to worry about whether it's 20 minutes after, before, or whatever. You can just go and Alice, you don't have to think about it. So it's like an easy way to get around that arbitrary thresholds. Well, that I think is everything. If anyone has any last minute questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, it's great to see everyone, and I hope you have fun out there. Everything is coming back and getting busy, and there's exciting season ahead. So take care, everyone.
You too.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank you.
Bye.